So, full self-disclosure, I am one of those people that got into houseplants during the pandemic and found it very difficult to continue this hobby as we return to a normal life. In this video, I'm going to update you on what I've been up to, talk about my experience with houseplant burnout, and give you some tips if you're in a similar situation. So come along as I repot my pothos and let's chat. I've already got my soil mixture, and as usual, it's half houseplant potting mix and half perlite. And today's plan is to repot these two together so I get a full pot of golden pothos. And this guy here is outgrowing in spots, so we're just gonna move it to a bigger pot. The last time I posted a full video was more than half a year ago. Back then I was still a grad student and do research full-time, but now I have a full-time job and most of my free time is taken up by many hours of French class, because I live in Montreal. I've also just recently adopted 2 adorable cats with my partner, so let me know if you're interested in seeing them in my videos. So that's a very brief life update. Now let's talk about plant burnout. Growing up, we had some houseplants in my parents' home, but it never really interested me. And when I eventually moved out of my parents' place, I never really thought of getting my own plants. And that all changed when I started spending the majority of my time at home during the pandemic. As many of you can relate, I looked for hobbies that I could do at home, and I had this desire to look after something, to care for something. So I bought a pot of golden pothos. I really like pothos, in case you can't tell, but yeah. I got myself a pot of pothos and started to learn how to take care of plants. Taking care of it and seeing it grow really helped me mentally and emotionally in ways that I can't fully explain. But I'm sure you can understand if you're also into plants. The next thing I know, the number of plants in my home grew exponentially, and I think I had around 20 plants at the peak. So this number may be small or big depending on, you, but for me that was a lot. And that's one of the things I wanted to highlight. It doesn't matter how many plants someone else has in their home or in their Instagram. You have to be honest with yourself. What's the number of plants you can take care of before it starts to feel like a chore instead of a hobby? Aside from that, I'd say the biggest cause of my plant burnout was moving from the UK to Canada. And as you may know, if you have been following me, I moved from the UK back to Canada permanently about a year ago. It was last summer. And the move was very stressful. There were many things I had to sort out because I was preoccupied with sorting out all the details regarding the move. Taking care of plants really started to feel like a chore. So I think that's when that feeling really started for me. This was spring and summer of 2022. So right around the time when things finally opened up, like for good. So after settling in Canada, I finally got some plants, which I documented. It did take me a while because, obviously we had to sort out the apartment and furniture and job, things like that. After settling down, I documented getting the new plants for my apartment. I started, I think, around 10 plants, thinking that it was a reasonable number. And I thought I could continue doing mini experiments and all the fun stuff that I enjoyed. But that never really happened. And basically, the time that I used to spend on plants and YouTube videos was now taken up by hours of French class, job hunting, transitioning to a new job, and also now the cats. So for months, I basically did the bare minimum to keep the plants alive. I watered them when they needed water, so about every 1 to 2 weeks. Okay, this one is done. here. So the next plant is this marble green pothos. And I'm going to transition it into a slightly bigger pot because it's getting really cramped in here. So yeah, after getting the new plants, I thought I would continue doing what I used to do with plants, you know, YouTube channel, videos, mini experiments, and all that. But what I ended up doing was really the bare minimum. I water them when they need it, and that's about it. And I spent so little time with my plants that I barely noticed when they grew new leaves. Whereas, you know, back in the day, I would get so excited over every new leaf that every single plant would grow. And when I got these plants, I also got neem oil, I got fertilizer, and I just didn't really end up using it just because it was an extra step in the plant maintenance that I couldn't get myself to do. In general, I just really couldn't be bothered. But now, obviously, I'm repotting them, so I'm giving them a bit more love. And after making some adjustments, and after some time, after settling down in a new apartment, finally, I'm happy to say that I feel excited about my plants and I feel the love for them once again. So here are some things and I guess realizations you could say that helped me get over the burnout. So the first thing is that I realized I wasn't appreciating my plants or, you know, noticing new growth as much as before because my plants were simply too far away. Like I wasn't spending enough time with them. And what I mean is that I had plants in my living room and my bedroom. I noticed I was more eager to take care of the plants in the living room than the bedroom. And eventually I realized it was because besides sleeping in the bedroom at night, I pretty much don't go in there during the day, like at all. And as a result, I was appreciating the plants in the living room a lot more because that's where I would spend my time. So I found myself appreciating my plants a lot more when I began to use them to spice up different places in my apartment instead of keeping them on a shelf by themselves in a room that I rarely used during the day. It also really helped me to change my perspective. I felt very guilty when I lost my motivation for houseplants because I felt like I was abandoning them. And I think it's tricky with houseplants because on one hand, they are a living thing that relies on us to survive. But at the same time, it's just a plant. Like it's not a pet or a person. When I first started keeping houseplants, I would give them names and I would talk to them because I personified them so much. And I really had to remind myself at the end of the day that it's just a plant. If I'm preoccupied with moving overseas, if an actual person in my life needs me, or if I just want to explore a different hobby and discover what else I enjoy, it's okay. It's okay that I'm not the perfect plant mom. And no one is 100% into every single one of their hobby at all times. So it's normal to feel unmotivated about houseplants sometimes. The other thing I found that helped me get over my burnout was to really identify what I enjoy the most about keeping houseplants. And I realized that I find the most joy in watching a plant grow instead of having a specific plant in my collection. So I found that if I'm already unmotivated about houseplants, going out to buy a new plant does not do much to motivate me. If anything, it creates more plant chores, which only makes things worse when I'm already feeling burnt out. So I started asking myself, how many plants can I take care of right now, given my current life circumstances, so that it adds to my life as a hobby, instead of adding stress to my life as a chore. This number should be unique to each person because, well, we all have different activities and responsibilities in our lives. And with my current lifestyle, I think 10 is around the max. I also realized that letting go of perfectionism was very helpful. At the most enthusiastic stage of me being a plant parent, I wanted to give the best to my houseplants, like for them to grow as fast as they can and propagate as much as I can. That's what I thought being a good plant parent meant. And that made things very stressful because I would panic when the plant doesn't do well or when I find pests on the plant. While my intention was good, right? We all want to provide the best for the things that we care about, but it created a lot of unnecessary stress for myself. So I've learned to be okay with my plants not growing at the fastest rates, to be okay with not providing them with the optimal level of sunlight every day, okay with not propagating every single cutting when I go prune the plant, and as long as the plant is alive and not deteriorating, I'm happy. So letting go of being the perfect plant mom has made houseplants a much more relaxing hobby for me. Lastly, looking back, I definitely noticed that when I was really obsessed with plants, a few other things in my life were not going well, and it definitely seemed like back then I was focusing on houseplants as a way to escape the other unpleasant things in my life. So it is entirely reasonable that now I am in a better spot in my life. I would have a healthier relationship with my plants and this hobby. And by healthy, I mean less obsessive. So right now, my mindset is really, I have some plants, I take care of them, I enjoy how they look, I enjoy how they make my apartment look, but I also embrace many other things in my life, many other hobbies. Now that I have shared my story, I'm curious to know, have you ever experienced burnouts with plants? If so, let me know in the comments. I would love to hear about it. I'll see you next time. Bye!